Hello guys, and welcome to my review of the Tudor Black Bay Blue Bezel. This watch is actually um, housing a manufacturer caliber. That's the MT5602, which is a COSC certified movement. So we're not talking about the ETA that was housed in previous versions of this watch, but we're talking a in-house movement. It is an automatic watch, of course, self-winding mechanical movement with bidirectional rotor system. Power reserve is actually a staggering 70 hours. And you can see how the industry right now is moving away from 44, 48 hours, and more you're gonna see watches with a movement capable of a power reserve of 70 hours and more. What an interesting dial. It's actually very simplistic, I would say. This is a matte finish black dial with applied indices and snowflake hour hand. Let's take a closer look at the crown, which is actually very interesting. It has this nice blue touch there, this finish in plastic, I believe it is. And it actually quite separates nicely the crown from the case. The flanks are polished, and there is a satin finish, brushed finish I should say, on the front of the case, and a nice beveling which separates the top of the case, the front of the case from the flank. Was actually a nice touch, visually very interesting. Now let's move to the back, which is actually pretty much standard Tudor case back, and you can see that is actually a manufacturer caliber that is housed in this watch. And that's very beautiful, I believe. That's very simple and beautiful. And the bracelet is actually very nicely done. It's all brushed with these rivets. Now rivets can be, some of them are actually screws that you can remove to adjust the bracelet to your wrist. Let's go back to the bezel. Let's take a listen. It is a very smooth action on the bezel, very precise. There's almost no play in between clicks, and it aligns perfectly to the 12 o'clock position. Let's go back to the bracelet. Actually, the bracelet is machined, is very solid, and it folds this way, and then there's a security clasp there which shuts and aligns perfectly to the watch. There's a nice writing there on the clasp, Tudor, and I think it's a beautiful watch. I think it is it's a stunning watch, and it's 41 millimeter, which is actually a little bigger than a Submariner, but in my opinion, it wears nicely on the wrist. Let me give you guys a wrist shot. And there you have it. I think it wears very nice. It's not too big, but not too small, but definitely tends to be on the big side, because it's a 41, but it wears almost like a 42. It's kind of heavy, but not, I mean, just like a regular diver would be, nothing excessive. It wears, actually, it's very, very beautiful. I love this blue touch on the bezel there. And let's talk about the dial a little bit more. The crystal is a sapphire crystal and it's domed, which means it's curving. It's not really flat, almost flat, but it's a bit curved, as you can see. Now let's take a closer look at the crown there, which is actually embossed with the rose, the famous Tudor rose, engraved on the crown, which is actually quite big, but it's beautiful. It's actually a nice accent. I really love that design. And it's actually very easy to operate once you unscrew it counterclockwise. You hear a click and then you go pull in once and then you adjust the time. There's no date on this watch, so there's no other complications, so you're not gonna have more positions for the crown. That's just one, basically. Actually, I may say two. One, that is when the crown is pulled all the way, so you adjust the time, and the other one, when you click it back, you can still charge your movement manually, like so. And it's a hacking second movement. Now you screw it back in, and it's almost flush with the, well, almost. There is this nice separator. I love that separator. It gives a nice accent, and is actually matching the blue of the bezel. I think it's a beautiful, extremely beautiful watch. I love this piece. It's nicely done, solid, a beautiful diver. Legibility is, of course, great, even in the dark. And you see all these white indices are really, really contributing to give to the overall design of the dial a stunning look. And they're very, very, very visible, even from far. There's a nice contrasting white with the black dial. I should say I might have preferred if the dial was actually a deep black, as opposed to almost glossy, as opposed to matte, like in this case. But I'm not having no complaint, honestly. The clasp, there's no quick adjustment of the clasp there, but of course you can regulate it. You have 3 positions right there. It's beautiful. Tudor Geneve is also engraved on the clasp, and is really very solid. It's amazing. What I would like to do now is actually make a comparison with 2 other watches that are very interesting as well. One is the Tudor Black Bay Bronze, and you will see in a minute why, I mean, it is interesting to compare those 2 watches. And the other one is Rolex Submariner two-tone. Just to get an idea of the appearances when in comparison with other watches, with other divers, and as well as the size comparison. So let's compare now the Tudor Black Bay steel with blue bezel with this other Tudor here, which is a bronze. And as you can see, this is actually, I believe, a 42 case, which is actually bigger. You see how bigger it is. It's pretty much the same watch, but from a size perspective, the bronze is actually bigger, much bigger. So I'm gonna review this another time, the Black Bay bronze. And now another comparison. So you're certainly wondering, how big is 41 millimeters, or how big is this watch compared to a Submariner? Here it is. It's actually pretty much the same size. There's 1 millimeter difference with the Submariner, but also you get to appreciate the differences. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about the glossy finish on the dial, which I do love on a Sub. Whereas here is actually matte finish, but it's also very, very nice. Right, I think this was interesting as a comparison. So you get to judge for yourself in terms of size how they compare to one another. Now, just a note on the box that watch comes with. They've changed something, I don't know, in their marketing strategy. They used to provide an additional strap in the box. There was a beautiful NATO strap, textile, and I would have wished they put this in blue to match the blue of the bezel, or even a darker blue to contrast with the blue of the bezel. Still, they didn't do any of that. What I've got is actually a very simple box with just the paper. So what you have here is the links that were removed from the bracelet when it was sized to my wrist. I still have them, of course. I keep them, and that's it. That's the box. There's nothing more to it. It's a very simple, non-fancy box, which is a bit of a shame because the box comes with the Tudor Black Bay bronze. Is actually really nice. It's like wood, and there you have in that box you have a second strap for this watch, but they didn't do that for the Black Bay in steel. It's a pity they don't put the additional strap in the box. They used to put a NATO blue strap in the box with this watch, or black, depending on the model that you get. Of course, there's a red burgundy version of this bezel, and they don't do it anymore. And I think it's a shame because the strap itself was good quality, and if you go and buy on separately, that's gonna cost in the hundreds, and it's really not a good thing, something you don't want to do. Anyways, because I wanted to have a NATO strap to go with this watch, I purchased this one, which it's very hard, I believe, to match a strap, a color to this watch because of the blue bezel. If it was black, that would have been much different, but being blue, you really have to be careful to go for a color that is really matching with that blue, or totally different, creating a contrast. But I think this one is actually a nice strap for this watch. It looks great, I think. What do you guys think? I think it's almost this is a seat belt. This is a seat belt kind of strap. You can see the waving reminds you of a seat belt. It's actually very well refined, and when you flex it a bit, you get this reflection, like sort of metallic reflection, which is actually going with the watch because it's going with the steel of the watch. This is what I mean. If you flex it a bit, you see this color gives this nice reflections on the strap that is actually calling out to the steel of the watch. And I do think this is actually a nice combination. Of course, you can go with black, Although my preferred choice would be a dark blue, like in the original Tudor NATO strap. Okay, I think that kind of wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if so, please subscribe and like. See you next time.